And welcome back to the Sportsnaut interview. And today we are talking Chicago Bears football with Joey Christopoulos, who covers the Bears for the All City Network. And, Joey, the Bears were one of the more trendier teams coming into the season. Of course, we know they were featured on this year's HBO Hard Knocks. They drafted Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. They brought in Keenan Allen. So there's a lot of excitement surrounding this team coming into the season. Things got off to a bit of a shaky start for Caleb Williams. Didn't come out of the gate maybe as fast as some of the fans would have liked. But he's coming off his best game of his young career. All of a sudden, the Bears are 3-2. And so I'm interested to get your take, your feedback. I know you probably interact with some of the fans quite a bit. What's the vibe like right now amongst the fan base? Are they still excited about this Bears team off to a 3-2 start?
Well, Evan, first off, it's great to be with you here on the show. Thank you so much for having me. You walk through the timeline pretty accurately. If we look back at our offseason, for Chicago Bears fans, we've had a couple of pretty difficult off seasons in the past. In the beginning of the offseason, we had to do the whole Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams thing. We called it the Bears Civil War on Twitter. Once we got over that, though, honestly, it was a really fun, fantastic offseason. You mentioned some of them, Roman Dunze. A lot of optimism heading into camp. Obviously, we got a chance to see them on Hard Knocks, which is a little bit on the boring side, but still little access that you're not normally going to get. Walked into the season with a ton of hope and enthusiasm that was immediately dashed by the type of football and offensive ineptness that we're so used to here in this town. But over the last 2 weeks, Evan, the fun is back. We walked into the year ready to have a great time. It got deflated out of the balloon just a little bit, but the last 2 weeks with the Rams, especially with this last one against the Carolina Panthers, the way that Caleb Williams has played in those two games, the way that he has made incremental progress over the last 2 weeks, and now with an opportunity to possibly go 4-2, heading into the bye week, beating the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend, things are definitely looking up. And Chicago Bears fans, we're starting to have fun again. We're ready to roll.
Well, that's what it's all about. Now, Caleb Williams, you just mentioned coming off one of his best games, 300 yards passing, a couple touchdown passes. He looked good. He looked efficient. Is he starting to turn the corner in your eyes? Is he starting to get more comfortable, or was this more of a product of just playing against a bad team?
It's very fair. We have to give a little bit of credit to the latter on that one. And keep in mind, too, as well, when they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend, they give up 287 passing yards to opponents, which is worse than the NFL. So this is another great offensive versus defensive matchup for Caleb. And even in 2 weeks of the Washington Commanders, their defense ain't great either. But again, I'm going to play the meatball card. A little bit of you play who's on your schedule, which is fine. For those of you that are not too familiar with my work, all offseason, I've just been trying to temper expectations for Chicago Bears fans. I don't think this is a linear path of ascension that we're going to see from Caleb Williams. I think there's going to be some peaks. I think there's going to be some valleys. I think there's going to be weeks where Caleb Williams wins you the football game. I think there's going to be weeks when Caleb Williams loses you the football game. So we're right now, I think we're a little bit in that peak stretch. I will tell you, Evan, though, a couple things that have really impressed me. The first one, obviously, is He's doing a good job progressing in the pocket, staying in the pocket, moving from 2 receiver to 3 receiver, starting on front side, even moving backside and hitting some of his receivers. I've really enjoyed that, something that we haven't enjoyed in Chicago in quite some time. He's had a good command of the offense. He's advocated for up-tempo to try and get a little bit of a 2-minute drill so defenses can't sub in and out. They can't disguise, a linebacker coming in that drops back into coverage, all that good stuff. And then the final one, you just mentioned the 300 yards and the multiple scores. I've been running this around Chicago all week long. And just for context for Chicago Bears fans, Caleb Williams completed 69% of his passes, threw for over 300 yards and multiple scores. And I was saying to myself, man, when was the last time we ever saw a Chicago Bears player do it? I went back only 2 quarterbacks the last 7 years. Mitch Trubisky only did that 4 times in 51 starts. It took him 15 starts to even eclipse that number of 69%, 300 yards, and multiple scores. Justin Fields in a Bears uniform only did that 1 time against the Denver Broncos in his 30th start, 40 games total for the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams did it in start number 5. I know it is a bit of a stats-driven thing, but at the same time, it shows the type of progress and maybe the type of ceiling that Caleb Williams has that the past 2 quarterbacks unfortunately did not.
Yeah, and I know one of the other areas that he's shown some growth is against the blitz, and that is one thing that Matt Eberflus, they stressed it in training camp, and Williams even admitted in training camp that that was something he felt like he still needed to show some growth in. In the last 2 games, he's been 17 of 19 for 200 yards passing and 2 touchdowns against the blitz. So, steady improvement, and that's all you can hope for if you're a Bears fan. Now, one of the things that you mentioned there is how you were tempering expectations for Caleb Williams heading into the season. You believe there's going to be ebbs and flows in the season, peaks and valleys, as you said. But what are the coaches and the Bears brass saying about his development, the pace of his development? It's hard not to link the quarterbacks that were drafted in this class together. I know there's already some comparisons being made out there with fellow rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, but are the Bears happy with what they've seen from Williams so far in his young career?
So from what I've been able to gather is internally and quietly, they're absolutely elated. Um, they're not just excited about what they're seeing from the progress on him from the first day of training camp to the preseason to week 1 to now as we're entering week 6. But I think a lot of the boxes that were checked in terms of him as a person, as a leader, have been very impressive. I think that it's more about, for Bears fans, I think it's more about what you are not hearing from the coaching staff that says a lot more about where Caleb Williams is in his development and the leadership and perhaps the command that he's already controlling over the offensive room. And I'm sorry, I'm going back to the 2 quarterbacks one more time, but this is something that Chicago Bears fans have had to deal with, and I've had to deal with my whole entire life. When they talked about Mitch Trubisky and him making progress, they would talk a lot about, well, I think we need to probably split the field in half, roll Mitch out, and make those decisions a little bit easier for him. And to be fair, he had some success at times in 2018 doing that. For Justin Fields, a lot of the narrative from the coaching staff was we need to make things simpler for Justin Fields to accentuate his athletic ability so he can just go out there, read and react and play. So at the time, you're kind of saying, well, they have a solution in place here to try and bring the most out of our quarterback. And as you look back upon it, it is a little bit of a comment and a little bit of a dig on some limitations that those past 2 quarterbacks had. And we're not hearing anything about that from Caleb Williams. He is in complete control. He gets autonomy on run checks. He gets autonomy to change plays. He's asked to play more up-tempo, to be in the flow and rhythm. And you'll see them, if you pay attention sometimes in a couple of moments in the game, they'll run a 2-minute offense and they'll go no huddle for 4 or 5 plays. And that's all Caleb Williams. So I think it's more about what you're not hearing from the coaching staff that is actually more of a ringing endorsement for this current quarterback compared to the last 2.
And what's your assessment, Ben, of Shane Waldron? I mean, that's a big job that he has, is to try to develop this young phenom quarterback. Has he done a good job so far? Is the relationship strong? And is he building a true identity with this offense?
I to be honest with you, I don't mean to hedge, but I think it's a little inconclusive on all 3 of those things.
Yeah.
I am trying to have some perspective a little bit on this. Now, when he came over from Seattle, there was 2 things that scared me a little bit. The first one was some Seattle Seahawks fans weren't very fond of how he would deploy the run game. Thought that it was maybe a little bit too pass heavy at the time, even though they had a great running back like Kenneth Walker. I think the other one was, as you saw, Dan Canales, who's now the coach at the Carolina Panthers, he had a big input and he had a big sway also in revitalizing Geno Smith's career. It wasn't just Shane Waldron. So can he run his own ship? It has been a little bumpy, Evan, the first couple of weeks, to say the least. They've already had to have something. The Chicago Bears have something called a leadership council, which is made up of 8 players on the team. The leadership council already had to have a meeting with Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, I believe right before the Los Angeles Rams season. To me, sometimes that could be a really bad red flag if you're already having those team meetings so early on in the season. And it has been very choppy. We have at least seen in the last couple of weeks more of a semblance of, to your third one, are they learning and getting an identity on offense? We've seen a couple of things that are now appear to be replicable, appear to be repeatable. And as you know, when teams start to find a little bit of some of that bread and butter plays, it creates a little bit more of an identity. So I'm trying to reserve judgment here in Chicago. The number one pinata in Chicago is to go after the offensive coordinator. It is a little bit early. It's a whole new process. He is working with a rookie quarterback. This is his first year implementing a system. It's going to take time. So unfortunately, I think it's going to be more of a week-to-week thing with Shane Waldron, and I'm not ready to light the dude on fire. I'm certainly not ready to give him a high five either.
Yeah. Now, defensively, this team's playing very well, ranked 4th in the NFL, only allowing 17 points a game. Another area they're doing really well is they're taking the football away. 11 takeaways right now. That they've got a very good turnover differential, +5, I believe. So they're doing some really good things on defense. And I think that that's very critical that you have a defense that can carry your team when you have a rookie quarterback who will go through some of those peaks and valleys that you talked about. Do you think this defense is good enough and built that they can sustain this type of play and carry what could be an up and down offense throughout the season?
I think overall, I would agree with you that I do think that this is a solid, good defensive unit. Again, as we know, turnovers sometimes they regress back to the mean. But again, this was a defense that was opportunistic last year. It is something that is coached and ingrained into them to try and punch the ball out, to try and create those turnovers. Hopefully that continues to happen. Heading into the year, I think we had a lot of question marks at the defensive line. And to this point, I think that unit has been pretty solid. We've seen the emergence of a guy like Javon Dexter with 4 sacks. They traded for a guy like Darrell Taylor from the Seattle Seahawks who's come in, and it's been a nice counterbalance on the other side to Montez Sweat, who's getting doubled and triple teamed every single week. And I do think that their secondary is absolutely elite. So I think we have this conversation a lot here in Chicago about where do they rank, Evan? Where do they rank? A lot of people believe that they're a top 5 unit. I'm probably going to put them a little bit more in that maybe 5 to 8 range. But look, what are we quibbling about here? That's plenty enough juice to win some football games. And as you made a great point too as well, when you have this solid team and a team that is now not allowed more than 21 points in 10 straight games, that is a great baseline right there for a rookie quarterback that says, hey, can you get us to that 20 to 24? And even if you get over 18, we got a great chance to win the ball game. I think that's a great recipe for success right now. So that is an underrated story that the defense so far has been solid. It has checked a lot of boxes, and that's going to help a rookie quarterback as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Joey, I know you got to run. I'll get you out of here on this one. They traveled to London. They traveled there Monday night to try to get acclimated to the time difference. You mentioned this earlier in our conversation. The Jaguars, the worst passing defense in the NFL right now, 287 yards allowed per game. Just get your thoughts on the matchup. Is this a game where you think the Bears are definitely going to look to attack that weak passing game? They got all these passing weapons, Cole Kmet, Keenan Allen. They got plenty of weapons, Roma Dunze. Do you think that this could be a big offensive week for the Bears again?
Big offensive week. I'm not going to get too far ahead of my skis on this one. I just did a show a little bit earlier today. I do have the Chicago Bears winning 27-17 in this game. I do believe that they are positioned to have probably not a dominant performance, but a convincing enough performance where a double-digit win, you head into the bye week 4-2. For a lot of people that were hoping for double-digit wins for the Chicago Bears, you only got to go 6-5 the rest of the way. So I am certainly rooting for that. A funny thing about airing it out per se has been, honestly, one of the X factors has been the reemergence or the resurgence, the revitalization of DeAndre Swift this season. A guy who honestly lacked elements of vision, wasn't really running very hard. They were deploying him in weird ways with a lot of outside run. He's been a kind of a revelation these last couple of weeks. So I do think there is going to be a little bit of some balance there that you're going to want to see. And when you did mention some of those players, I do think a really interesting X factor is that no one is talking about, and rightfully so, but I am really curious to see Keenan Allen in this game. A guy who has over 10,000 receiving yards, a guy who has been banged up this year. What new? Battling a little bit of a heel injury. But at the same time, when we do talk about DJ Moore and we talk about Roma Dunze, who's getting better every single week, I think this could be a really sneaky game for Keenan Allen to, I'm not saying 200 yards. I'm saying, 6 catches, 80, 90 yards, maybe a touchdown here and there. I think this could be a great opportunity for Keenan Allen to get going a little bit. Maybe throw that 32-year-old body around a little bit before the bye week, you know what I mean? Because, you're going to be able to rest up and get better. So I am projecting the Chicago Bears to win right now. Jacksonville, Their offense did have a little bit of a better performance last week, obviously putting up 37 points against the Indianapolis Colts, but I like our defense versus Trevor Lawrence in that unit. They got to stop Brian Thomas. I get it, but I do think the Chicago Bears are going to come out with a win in this game, so I like them in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of mouths to feed over there in that Bears offense. And you mentioned needing to go 6-5 to get to double-digit wins. I was looking at the schedule. It's interesting. Their final 8 games come against
Tough.
six of them division games. They don't play anyone until the final 8 games of the season from that division. It's a very tough division. So it'll be interesting to see where they are in the standings when they begin that divisional portion of their schedule. So Joey Christopoulos, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and if I can add, out of those 68 games, those other 2 games are the 49ers and the Seahawks. So, I mean, it's, you got to get them. You got to get them while the getting's good here right now.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Joey Christopoulos, everyone. Thank you so much for the time, Joey, and all your great insight.
My pleasure, Evan. I'll be happy to come back anytime. We'll talk some Big Ten, whatever you want. Thanks for having me.